Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys Podcast.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys Podcast. It's that time again. You should know where you are. This is Tyler Sheff, and I am the host of the Cash Flow Guys Podcast. And damn it, Mike, I did it again. I'm so used to being just the host. Welcome back.
Believe it or not, I'm actually looking at his face and live in person this time.
I can like boink you on the head, but you're bigger than me, so I probably wouldn't want to try that. But yeah, we are in the, let's see, we got to come up with a name for this little guy. The Cash Flow Camper.
Cash Flow Camper.
So funny story. Yeah. Funny story, guys. We're both in Tarpon Springs, Florida today. I drove in from Key West. Mike flew in from Colorado. We're here meeting with team members and building our team to start work on this asset. And we're like, oh, geez, we got to do a podcast. So I should know I should normally be 100% ready to go, but I wasn't. And I was like, oh my God, we got it. So dive into the briefcase. Mike now flies with a microphone, and which brings me to a quick short story. I'm going to sidetrack for a second. Tell the folks at home about the TSA and your flight bag.
So because of the podcast, now Tyler got me carrying this microphone everywhere, wherever I go.
Right.
And sometimes I have to go through a random security check, and then they put my bag through the X-ray machine. They pulled me aside, and they said, "Is that a microphone?" Like, oh, that's right. Yeah. I've got a podcast. You are the first pilot I've ever seen who carries a microphone.
You should tell them, like, you practice in the bathroom, like, this is your captain speaking. We're rapidly approaching 30,000 feet. You can switch off the seatbelt sign, kick back, relax. Tampa is on its way. That's funny. So, yeah, if those of you that don't know, or you just showed up, or maybe you bumped your head and you forgot, Mike is an airline pilot. He flies for a living, so he's all over the country. And the beauty of you flying, which I love, is that you being part of this team is that you can show up pretty much on a moment's notice under most circumstances. I mean, obviously you have a life, but I love the fact that you can pop in and you're with me and Jill and the rest of the team as we go through this.
Yeah. As long as I got a place to stay.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Right. Yeah. He says that because he got evicted this week. He stays when he was here, as he's here now, he stayed in one of our short-term rentals. We had an apartment open, this week. So he brought his wife to be in and his future father-in-law, and they stayed for a couple of days in one of the apartments that we had open, a rare vacancy. But, the vacancy got filled. So Mike had to pack his bags and get out.
I did. I hated to.
Paying customer showing up. But anyway, the flexibility of your job makes being part of this team, it makes it easier on me because I'm not doing everything myself, and you do a very good job of sharing the workload. So I appreciate you doing that. Which leads us to why we happen to be in Tarpon Springs. Now, for those of you who know, we recently bought a large building in Tarpon Springs. It's as it sits right now, it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. And we're getting ready to start renovations. We've been interviewing, team members to start getting rolling on this asset, right? To make sure, everything goes the way it goes. So we thought this episode, we kind of talk you through that process, what we've done this week, because I think that there's a lot you can take away from this if this is your first go around, or maybe you've been out of the game for a bit and you're kind of thinking, geez, I got to get back in the game. Building a team sounds like a huge task, and I don't want to understate it. It is a big task, but the way things have been going for us, it's working really well. Now, if I know for you, this isn't your first time building a team, definitely not my first time building a team, but this is very unique because you and I are both stepping out of our comfort zone. We get real estate, but we're getting into a flavor or a genre of real estate that we haven't yet ventured, which I don't know, me is exciting. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, it is exciting. And, our guest probably heard in the last episode, we interviewed Isabella Guarino.
Yeah.
And she kind of opened our eyes to the different side of real estate that most of us and probably most of our listeners aren't really used to dealing with. It's different.
And for those of you who didn't listen to last week's episode, or you missed it, or maybe you forgot, what we're talking about is residential assisted living. We're talking about residential assisted living. What does that mean? Well, people commonly think of it as old folks home, retirement community, that type of thing. We're not going to build one of these big commercial things where you stick grandma in the closet. And no, not at all. Instead, we're tapping into a very, I'll call it niche for lack of a better word, part of the industry where this is more residential based. So these are This is currently a single family home. We're going to be making some modifications to it to accommodate 10 residents. So it's about a 3,400, 3,500 square foot house. We're working with architects and contractors to change the use of this. So we've been bouncing back and forth on, do we run the business end of it as well? And folks listening, by business, I mean, running an assisted living facility is in fact a business, and it's a very involved business. I mean, you are responsible. If you're a care provider, you're responsible, or an operator, as they say in the industry, you're responsible for the care of other people. And, you know, I've raised 2 kids, but this is much different because we're talking about adults. Mike, you and I have talked a lot about, is that where we want to go, or do we want to focus just on the real estate? Could we do both? Sure. Do we want to? I'm going to leave. You can go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So most of the training we've been looking at talks about owning the real estate and managing the business. They always talk about you're the manager of the manager, which sounds great. You know, obviously nobody wants to be living in an assisted living facility. And unfortunately, most assisted living facilities out there that we visited, kind of spying around, the owner is the operator, is the caregiver, is the one giving sponge baths and everything. That's their life. And that's not what we do, because our interest, what we are best at, is the real estate end.
Right.
Yep. Obviously, we can learn that aspect of the business with hiring the caregivers or whatnot, but is that the best use of our time? You know, I'm an airline pilot, and so I focus on the plane. I don't have to deal with passengers in the back. I don't have to deal with collecting tickets or anything, because everybody's specialized in exactly what they enjoy doing, what they're trained in doing. And the same thing over here. We're trained and we're specialized in the real estate only. So when we dove deeper into it, we realized, most people who want to get into assisted living facilities, they don't understand the real estate end. They might have an interest, and most of their education, honestly, is on the caregiver end and actually operating the assisted living facility. But then they shake their hands and say, I don't know how to buy a property for this.
Or buy it and get it right, or do the negotiation or the rehab.
That's right.
It's a lot of moving parts. You know, we're talking about, we have to change the zoning on this home to get the zoning such that we can operate it legally. For us, it's like, you know, we're real good at the real estate piece. We're good at finding opportunity, negotiating deals, taking down the asset, getting through the renovation, getting through zoning. Those are problems I think that we're both very good at solving. When it gets into the business side of it, as far as running the actual facility, I don't know about you, Ben, but my youngest daughter is now 24. So it's been 23 years since I've wiped a bum. And I'm not going to start anytime soon ever again. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. I'm just not doing it. And it's just not something I don't think I would be best served for that. I think I'm better at helping people that have real estate problems by buying the real estate, you know, getting things under contract, getting them through closing, getting the zoning, as we talked about, getting all that done. That's really my highest and best. And of course, your highest and best as well. So that's what we're going to focus on, right?
Yeah. In order to do that, we have to build our team. Just like, you know, I'm up front flying the plane. You have to build the team of the ticket agents and the customer service reps and the flight attendants. You have to build a team for it.
That's right.
And as a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of reading Robert Kiyosaki's latest book, which was Capitalist Manifesto. Great book.
Oh, yeah. I haven't started that one yet.
Oh, yeah. So towards the end, the big theme is team. He talks about his poor dad was poor his entire life because he tried to do everything himself.
Right.
Because he was an educator, and that's what you're trained to do. You're trained to be the valedictorian and do it all yourself.
Right.
And that's why he stalled out. And he talks about, and it's the same thing in business too. Many small businesses remain small. They stay in that S quadrant. You remember
Yes,
that from the
absolutely.
Castro quadrant?
Yep.
He said they stay in the S quadrant because they don't know how, and they're not willing to build their team. They can't go over to the B, the big business, until they realize, hey, you need to be a generalist, not a specialist. Look back and then build your team. That's what we learned a lot of lessons and great strides on that today, actually.
What's interesting about this industry as far as the assisted living is that most folks don't think that way. They strive to be the administrator, which, you know, no crime in doing so. But when you truly know what you're good at and where your time is best spent, listen to that voice would be some advice I'd give right away. I tell you a couple times, and you and Jill have both brought me back down to earth, where I said, look how much money we're leaving on the table if we don't run the business. I mean, I mean, owning the real estate and being the landlord is great, no doubt. I mean, the returns are exciting, to say the least. However, the business end of the ALF is also financially exciting. You can, as Gene Galliano said, you can do good and do well. By doing good work and doing well financially, it's rewarding. It could be rewarding. The more we start talking to people and adding them to the team, and I'm starting to learn the nuances of what it takes to be the operator, not just the landlord, now I'm turned off. I mean, when I listen to the regulation, what we have to do. And guys at home, when you're doing an assisted living facility, the building has to be licensed to operate. So what we've decided to do is we're building a team of people that are going to help us, not just drywall hangers, electricians, and contractors. We've hired an ALF consultant who is a licensed administrator in the state of Florida. His job is going to be working with us and the architect and the contractor and the city and our zoning attorney to get it properly zoned, to build it out such that when it is built out, the operator it'll be built out ideally for an operator. Now, this gentleman is a professional. He's been doing it for 22 years. He owns several of his own homes already. He's phasing himself out of the business as the operator and phasing himself in as a consultant, and ironically happens to be a licensed realtor. He's got into the real estate side of things, which is exciting because now we have an expert in ALF real estate on our team who also comes with 22 years background running an ALF. So when it comes to trying to figure out think about when you flip houses, right? You flip houses and it's like, well, I wonder, should I do Corian countertops or granite? Should I do cultured marble? What color should I do? Should I do an earth tone or should I do maybe a gray or a blue or God knows what? So when you're flipping houses, it's kind of a guessing game because you don't yet know who you're selling the house to when you're a flipper. And in the ALF space, the same is true. But because we have the consultant, he knows, because he actually trains a lot of operators across the state of Florida. He knows what the operator, what the new tenant that's going to move in there and run their business out of our building is looking for. Fire suppression, making sure you have a proper built-in generator, not some hokey pull start thing out in the back where Aunt Sally has to go pull the rope to fire up the generator if the storm comes through. Making sure that, the doorways are the right width. How many square foot per person we learned today about the dining area.
Oh, yeah.
So many square foot per resident in a dining and living area. All these things have to be taken into consideration. So for a fee, we are bringing him along as a paid member of our team who works with us to make sure that we can remain compliant. I don't know about you, man, but after getting out of that meeting, that was one of the reasons I had to get on this podcast and say, this is what makes it happen.
Oh, yeah. And well, sometimes when I speak on this podcast, I like to think I'm talking to my past self, myself 5 years ago.
I do that too.
Because back then I heard the same thing. Build a team. Well, okay, let me just let's type in Google ALF expert consultant, and I'll find the answer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. Right. Let's talk about real briefly, because this whole week we kind of found one person that led us to another person person until our consultant that we ran into today, which kind of sealed the deal. Let's talk about that journey, which I think is important for most people.
So I'm going to roll back even farther, Mike, because this started with zoning. When we were trying to figure out what we're going to do with this property, initially we were going to fix it and flip it. And then we looked at it and we talked about it a lot and thought, we're leaving money on the table if we do that. And we're creating a tax obligation for our investors potentially, which we don't want to do if we can avoid it. So what's best for the investors? What's best for the fund? And the answer is to keep it and hang on to it and cash flow it. Take some accelerated depreciation, things like that, to give it tax advantages to our investors, not tax liabilities. When we started looking into that, it came to zoning. First thing I did is call Sean Yesner, yesnerlaw.com. Sean is our real estate attorney, represents us here in the fund, and of course, has been helping me for years, good friend of mine. I said, Sean, what do I do about getting the zoning fixed? He goes, you call this lady, and he gives me the name and phone number to an attorney friend of his that's down the road in Safety Harbor that is an expert in zoning, local zoning, has experience with the city of Tarpon Springs, can navigate that for us. And that doesn't mean that she needs to go put on her warrior outfit and go fight. She just knows who to call, the procedure to follow, and the steps to take. Not that we're getting any preferential treatment like that, but she just knows what to do, what forms get filled out. So we hire her. She gets rolling on the zoning. Good. Now we've checked that box, right? But yesterday, for example, well, actually a couple weeks ago, we talked to a gentleman over in Tampa.
Yeah.
He's a guy that was an operator. Well, I guess not anymore because he sold. He took the training course that we took. He took the advanced level, built 3 assisted living facilities from single family houses. Money people came into town and bought them out.
Yeah.
And bought them out. He said that his words were an offer I couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
So he took the money and ran. And there's a big trend on that right now where hedge funds are coming in and big time investors are coming in. Institutional money's coming in and buying up these assisted living facilities, and they're paying a premium for them.
Yeah. And I kind of want to give a little background on that because I'm sure most people are like, how did you find that guy? Well, it's like I said, it's not just, we didn't just type it in Google.
Right.
First, we took the education. From the education, we said, we want to find like-minded people who did this course, who went much further, much deeper into it.
Yep.
Let's look for some alumni of this program.
Right.
And that's how we ended up finding this person.
Right. You had found in the resources section of the RAL Academy, those groups and whatnot. And then we found some associations, and then we found some Facebook groups as well. And we started seeing a lot of similarities, like, oh, this guy's popping up here and he's popping up there and he's popping up. He's kind of a little bit omnipresent. Let's get him on the phone. And we had a good conversation with that guy. And then he's like, oh, you should probably talk to these people.
Yeah.
Then you found that what do you call it? Not the headhunter, recruiter placement agency.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Assisted living placement agency.
So then Mike found a placement agency locally right here in Tarpon Springs. I mean, literally across the street from one of our properties.
Yeah. That was a Google search.
Right. It's like poof. It's right across the street. Never knew it was there.
Yeah.
We went and met with that gentleman who owns a placement agency, been in the business a long time. He gave us a ton of information, helped us get our pricing right. Because guys, let's understand, I get renting to multifamily. I know what it costs to rent a 2-bedroom, 1-bed apartment in Tarpon Springs or whatever market I'm invested in because I study that market. So we both had to restudy, basically relearn or re-educate ourselves on what can we rent it for. Because, we could go do all this work to find out no one wants to rent it. And when you ask the operators, what are you willing to pay for rent? You get a blank stare because nobody really wants to tell you.
Yeah. Oh.
Working with a placement agency, we were able to figure out, okay, how much does staffing cost? So we were able to back into the underwriting because we can look at it as an operator would. As an operator, I'm going to pay blank per hour for a nurse's aide or a caregiver. I'm going to pay this much for an administrator. I got to pay this much for food, and I'm going to charge this much. And here's how much money is left over at the end of the month. Obviously, that operator needs to earn a paycheck. What would that probably be? This placement guy and several like him helped us fill those blanks in. So we could back into what we feel fair market rent would be if we renovate this building and operate it as an assisted living facility. So that's a hypothesis, right?
Yeah.
We then took that information and I found somewhere, where did I find him? I don't remember, but I found our consultant and we reached out to the consultant who's got 20 some years experience, has paid rent in several facilities. And he went back through our math and without us prompting him, because we didn't give him any clues.
Oh no, we shook his hand and he just started spitting out everything.
Right. It was great. So he gave us a crash course and here's exactly how you figure out what to charge for rent. And ironically, we were within like $200 of where we need to be.
Tyler, you know what this reminds me of? The Wizard of Oz.
How so?
I'm Dorothy, you're Toto, right?
I always wanted to be Toto.
No, seriously. Like all of a sudden, we're in this weird world that we've never been in before, this assisted living facility, right?
That's true.
And then we see this yellow brick road and we just start walking and we just stop and we're so confused of where to go next. And we see this guy in the straw man and we just go up to him and just give him a straw. All of a sudden he starts telling us clues of where to go next on the yellow brick road until we end up with the Tin Man.
That's right.
I know it sounds real cliche and everything, but now that I think about it.
Not really, as long as you're the one wearing the dress. I'm good with that. I mean, I live in Key West. By all means, I should have the dress. But if you're willing to take one for the team, I'm all for you. And you should see what we say when we're off air. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but seriously, so like everybody listening out there, and I'm like, again, I'm talking to my former self 5 years ago. When I would hear these tips on the podcast, I would go so far and then get frustrated and give up.
Right. And I've done that too, a lot.
Yeah.
One problem I had with this, I'll be honest with you, and it hit me. You realized that yesterday, I think for the first time, because you were here as we were driving around, we were looking at our quote unquote competition.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Jill and I went into one facility and it was okay, but it left a stigma. And a couple of years ago, my mom fell. My mom's just hitting 80 now. She fell and broke her ankle. I was out of state at the time on somewhere and I couldn't get here. So they put her in a rehabilitation center, which also happens to be an ALF, for a few weeks. I got home, went to go pick her up. And oh my God, there was people screaming at the top of their lungs. And that was my vision when we first hit ALF. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to own one of these places because I can't live with that.
Some of them was very depressing.
You guys think I'm a big meanie, but I'm a big softie. I can't handle people being abused or in pain. That's just not what I'm good at. I want to save the world, right? So I went to look at this ALF a few weeks ago and it was much better. There was no screaming. It didn't smell bad. But one thing that hit me is the lady that was running it owned a job. I said that last week on the podcast with Isabel.
Yeah.
Garino. She owned a job and that freaked me out. I'm like, I don't want to own a job because I can't go out and duplicate this. And we have a $10 million fund. We got a lot of money to invest in a relatively short period of time to do it. And we need to make sure that we garner great returns for our investors. I can't do that if I'm wiping someone's butt or trying to find out where the residents are, right? Or doing any part of that job. So as we've gone through and met these different people, and you yesterday, I didn't have the heart to go. We wanted to find more competition to see what else is out there. You took it for the team. Thank God that you had the courage to go look at those places because I didn't. So we drove around and Mike went in and talked to people, but every time you came out, you had a blank stare in your face like, oh boy.
Yeah. Everybody thinks assisted living facilities are going to be like nursing homes. And unfortunately, the ones that when I went into, they also thought they're supposed to be like nursing homes. You know, the ones you walk into, it smells like tuna fish and just everyone's giving you that blank stare like they haven't seen a human in 20 years.
Right.
It's very sad. But we've realized this in our journey, right? Medicare facilities. When somebody doesn't have the means and by the time that they finally need to go to these facilities, Medicare kicks in. Medicare pays very, very little. So unfortunately,
pennies.
And unfortunately, that's your option of these very sterile and very depressing places. What we've learned through this journey is that there's another side. Those who have actually saved, maybe an HSA, I'm a big fan of HSA.
Right.
Maybe they have enough wealth and they sold their assets, though they can afford to go to assisted living facilities, not that are so sterile, but places, let's say you're a widower. You just want some company of fellow Greeks, like here in Tarpon Springs.
Right.
You want that boost in life. And honestly, that's what most ALFs are designed for. The ones we're targeting anyway are for those who can afford a higher standard of living because they deserve it, because they've saved up and now they can go in the company of their other yayas and their friends and to boost their standard of living up rather than just support them until the end. And that's the big difference that we learned.
Right. And we had to actually roll up our sleeves and get a look inside to see that where we knew we wanted to be and where we didn't want to be.
We didn't want to be, yeah.
Because I could see where people could get sucked into the Medicare side of things. Like, oh, it's government money. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
And as I started digging into the Facebook groups of ALF operators and whatnot and administrators, what I learned is, number one, I guess the new administration, the White House put out a change that mandated the $15 minimum wage for Medicaid.
Oh, yeah.
Medicaid facilities. And the problem is, I mean, that's great. I'm glad that on one side, I'm glad that at least people are going to make a halfway decent wage. But these facilities have been operating and paying significantly less, and now they're forced to pay that much more. And they can't raise the residents' rates because Medicaid's not going to pay any more money. So now they have to decide what care to give up. And that's the problem that's hitting the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you guys this because everybody listens to my voice. I know who the demographic of the podcast folks that listen is primarily male. 35 to 55. And guys, pay the hell attention. This applies to you. You've got parents and they're still alive. You may very well soon get hit with a big bill. And on the low end, that starts at $2,000, $2,500 a month. To get something even remotely decent to where you can feel like a decent human because taking care of your parents, you're looking at $4,000 to $6,000 a month to put one of your mom or dad in one of these facilities. It's no joke. The national average, as Isabel said last week, was $4,500 or $4,200 is the national average per month expense for the family for each person. So if you got both your mom and your dad are alive.
Oh yeah.
What about what, $8,400?
Yeah.
I saw the look on your face. I'm like, Mike, you've got a stepmom, a stepdad, and a mom and a dad. You're screwed. You got like 4 parental units, and you and your sister. I hope you have stepbrothers or stepsisters to help kick in for some of that. Because if you don't, ouch. And now he got real quiet. He's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it kind of wakes you up and realize, especially when your parents get I'm 41. So I'm at the point where my parents are starting to cross over that border into now I got to think about long-term care and all this. And honestly, it's a wake up call for me.
Oh yeah.
Make sure like you've got enough finances. They have enough finances. They're not going to blow it.
Right.
On Bitcoin or anything.
Right. Not going to Samuel Bankman-Fried.
Yeah. So they can live that happy life.
But I'm at 52 and it's knocking on my door. My mom's turning 80 and she's already had a fall that resulted in a broken bone.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm looking at that expense because I'm not putting my mother in a $2,000 a month facility. Never going to happen.
Not after seeing it.
No, hell no. My mother's going to be in a $5,000 or $6,000 facility. So when I add that to my bottom line, I'm like, well, geez, oh Pete's, I got to get my acting gear because if I got to add a $6,000 monthly expense to my expense column, that's something you need to be paying attention to. Guys, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, understand this, that one of the solutions of getting ready for this is if you decide to open one of these centers yourself, you could put mom or dad in there and that would drastically reduce that cost. Now, if you're a heartless bastard, doesn't care about your parents and you're going to stick them out in the backyard and hope the rain keeps them clean, so be it, I guess. But if you have a heart, you're going to be the type of person that takes care of your parents like we are. This is a real expense that's coming around the bend.
Yeah.
If they don't have it, I'm not an insurance salesman. This isn't an insurance pitch. But if you don't have long-term health care for them, plans or insurance, maybe start thinking about that. Because what we're learning on the inside of this industry is if you want good care, you're going to pay for it. $4,200 a month on average.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. And we want to provide them with a nice place to live, a place that they're proud to go of. And honestly, like I mentioned, that they're so excited to go there.
Right.
This is not the end of life. This is the next stage. I'm going to join my friends. Believe it or not, like these places, they have historians come in, magicians. I mean, they have big activities. Oh, yeah. It's kind of like summer camp at some of them.
Well, that one you and Janelle found over in Hyde Park, it's got like a full-on bar.
Oh, it's got a full bar, a pool.
Piano bar, pool.
They have a bus that takes them on tours of all the other places in Florida.
That's crazy.
These are nice places, and that's what we strive to provide because, unfortunately, what we found is that this place is in desperate need of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So moving forward, the next steps are we've inked a deal with the advisor, the consultant.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He's going to be working with us. He's our experienced person, so to speak. So we're paying him a fee to help us with this project. He'll be the expert as far as helping us all the other moving parts. Mike and I and Jill are going to be working with the architect and the contractors and whatnot. We're going to start turning on our Facebook ads again and whatnot and sending out emails because we're going to be raising our capital. The nice thing about this is we want to do it without having to incur debt. The beautiful thing about the fund is that it's a completely cash driven thing, which means we don't have any debt right now. We own the asset free and clear. We plan on using investor capital for the renovation. And then of course we spill back the rents and we do these on a triple net lease. If you don't know about triple net leases, look that up on Investopedia, but basically we're leasing it out with very little expenses. The operator pretty much covers all the expenses once the facility's built. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're pretty damn excited about it. We're going to have some webinars coming up soon. But in the meantime, if you want to reach out to us, you got questions about how's this work, maybe you want to do it, maybe you just want to watch us do it. That all begins by going to cashflowguys.com. Cashflowguys.com, I'd look up at the top. You can book a spot on our calendar, have a conversation. If you happen to be an accredited investor, you've got money sitting aside, you want to put it to work, you want to take part in this, then now's the time to reach out and let's start to get to know each other. You're welcome to come and meet us here in Tarpon Springs. Walk the facility if need be. You can meet our experts, get to know the team. We'll take you along for the journey. It's going to be a good time. We're going to do good things, and I think we're going to do great work. And I know we're going to do very, very well for both ourselves and our investors. So I don't know about you, brother, but I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I kind of want to share this story with everybody real quick as we end.
Sure.
So right now, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there.
There is.
A lot of doom and gloom about interest rates collapsing everything, and everybody's scared of the real estate market right now. This is a story I heard a few months ago. I think it was on Ken McElroy's channel. Mm-hmm. So Joe Biden, when he came in the office, one of the first things he did was close the Keystone pipeline, right? And everyone threw up their hands, screaming. Meanwhile, in the corner, Warren Buffett bought the railroad that transported oil from Alberta, Canada, which is where the Keystone started, all the way down to the refineries in New Orleans.
Because he knew the oil had to come either way. And if they shut down the pipeline, which was the cheapest way to get it here, he controls the transportation coming in. He got
rich. So because everybody's out there screaming and they're blaming the politicians and government, stop for a second and realize, how can I use this to our advantage? So, for example, we bought this big house. At first, we thought we were going to make it to a co-living area where people rent the rooms.
Right. City had other plans.
City said no. Just like when Joe Biden closed the pipeline. He said no. What can we do? Assisted living facility.
Right.
And now the city is all on board with it.
That's right.
And now we see a major need. So don't get stuck in that doom and gloom. Instead, stop, think about your options, and more importantly, reach out and find a team. And like I said, you're not going to find a team by just Googling on Google.
That's right.
Give Tyler a call at cashflowguys.com/book Tyler, right?
That's right.
Just a few minutes with him just to get ideas of, hey, do you know anybody who has any information on that? It's the Yellow Brick Road. Just find that tin man who's going to give you the hint to go to the next guy, which is the Cowardly Lion, right? And then
That's
eventually
right.
the odds. Keep going. No matter if every roadblock that you find, keep digging and you're going to find a gem there. Just keep asking people and keep talking.
There you go, guys. And there you have it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's getting out there, talking to people, asking questions, getting uncomfortable, making it happen. As always, as Mike said, you want to reach out to us. That all begins by hitting cashflowguys.com. You want to learn how to invest with us? You can do that on cashflowguys.com. You want to buy a property on your own and use one of my realtors that works for us? You can do that on cashflowguys.com. And I got a real amazing, exciting announcement coming up in the next few weeks that is going to be on cashflowguys.com. You guys are going to love it. I'm going to hold that one close to the vest right now. I'm not going to drop that on this podcast because we're not quite ready to go ready, set, go. But when we do, you can be really excited. Think of it as a form of entertainment that offers a little bit of education. And that'll be going live on Facebook or on cashflowguys.com here real soon. So with that, guys, we'll leave you right there. And we look forward to talking to you next week.
See you.
This concludes today's episode. You don't have to wait till the next episode to learn to earn.
Head over to cashflowguys.com and contact Tyler and his team for more powerful tips and ideas so you can start generating multiple streams of income and escape the rat race.